So because of that, his conscience is not going to bother him as far as especially what he's doing with people, meaning now he's unethical, he's okay with the immorality. But what happens if he goes online, he's talking to a 17-year-old or 16-year-old? Because I'm going to show you then by the time he gets busted, what he's doing. So for instance, going out on dates, doing date rape, statutory sexual assault. Okay, that's somebody over the age of 13, give or take. IDSI, that's under the age of 13. So this guy is now starting to think it's a reasonable proposition that same 35-year-old, he now is dating, or right, he's starting to go online, he's starting to interact with 17 high school kids. And then watch the age, and there's a certain category of porn. Let me look at it here. Where is it? It is barely legal. Okay, that is a category. That's also a magazine started by a woman, gosh, but sold to Hustler. So you can see he's going to start with adult, and then the age is always going to tend downward until it reaches this apex right there. Picture an hourglass that comes to a point right here. And what's going to happen is this is a really key point to where I'm just going to use this term. This may sound strange, but the regular sex offenders, there's nothing regular about them, but I've been working with them so long. Right, the difference between guys with adult victims and child victims, it all traces down to this category here. Pedophiles keep going. It is a lie spewed forth and spun by pedophiles and those that want to protect them for either monetary gain or for some other gain, that they push this lie that the minor attracted person was always attracted. It's a lie. They start with adult porn. They found the porn when they were 10 or 14, but what age were they looking at as far as porn? They were looking at adult female bodies. Or somebody started, or somebody handed to, they were being groomed at the time. So if it was a homosexual, if it was a gay perpetrator against a boy, it's going to be, they're going to use gay porn. Okay, but in one way or another, most male perps will introduce adult female bodies to kids. Okay, in one way or another, they're not going to show them babies. Doesn't work that way. Okay. So as now this guy is consistently after work at night, he's into Playboy Penthouse. He then is going to transition to what? What do you think online? There we go. Pornhub, OnlyFans. And he's starting to now, this becomes he turns on the computer at night. Where is he going? Okay. What's he got on his phone? Okay, so we're transitioning now when things are, and you notice he already started to transition, and that's why I put the dotted line just to the right of where these two tiles or bricks are, right? Softcore gateway porn to computer generated in this day and age, right? Even the almost like Sims games, right? So it's starting to now be fully sexualized in the Pornhub and OnlyFans. He will start accessing those before he crosses legal lines. This is where the pump is being primed. It's the pornography. Now, will he get busted at this point in time? Nope. But will he, if you're a guy, you start saturating your mind in this, eventually you're going into some of the little simulated games, and he's starting to interact with what age? There you go. 17-year-olds, 16-year-old girls. I mean, we certainly have boys as well. Okay. So before you know it, they're starting to interact with under the age of 18. What, are they getting arrested at that point? Absolutely not. They've got fake accounts. Okay. So they're starting to look more and more at younger, you've moved from college down into the teen. You're starting to, this is like age 23, 22, maybe 25, down to 18 and 17-ish in here, maybe even 16. You're starting to look at that stuff for a guy. These are all the guys in my sex offender. Now, again, rare is the time the guy's going to get busted for that, but they do. And when they do, they come over here. As a matter of fact, that's why I put it in the legal. So let's say a guy gets busted. Well, he's going to go before a judge. So I'm going to go back up now in the green to show you how this works. Okay. So let's say he does get busted, or he agrees to meet a 16-year-old online that he was playing computers with. Maybe this is the 22-year-old. This is somewhat common in sex offender treatment. I can have guys that are age 21, 22, and they're in because they were dating. You can even have a 19-year-old. And some are really sad situations where he was 17 and she was 15. He was the quarterback of the high school team, a senior, and she was a sophomore cheerleader. And now he turns age 18. She's still 15. Maybe he graduates or he's still in, but the parents don't like him. And so lo and behold, he could be charged with a sex offense with statutory sexual assault. So, that's where I say you can have a wide variety of guys. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get out of this just for a second. I'll bring it up behind here. Maybe I can do it right here. I'm going to bring up another chart. There it is. I don't know if it brought up here. So I'm just going to stop this for a moment. Bear with me.
I was going to say, I didn't see the new one on my end. I saw the one that you just had up.
Okay, so there we go.
There we go.
These are some charts that I put together while in the prison system. Oh, let me get rid of that.
Did you enlarge that a little bit too, Jon?
Yes. As a matter of fact, if you want to see these, I would recommend go to churchprotect.org under the Truths tab, and then you're going to start to see some of my research. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go, watch your eyes. I'm going to scroll straight down. This is just a Word document, so I don't want anybody to get sick. Oh, I'm right there. Okay, so when we're talking about sex offenses, so when you hear the word sex offender, I know what came to my mind originally, so I didn't really understand. And so these are some categories that I put together. There's different kinds of categories out there. So this is kind of my categorization because this is helpful, but I think it's very true. Okay, so you'll be able to see there's a wide variety, scale of 1 to 10, so to speak. So let's say the guy that graduated from high school, he had his group of friends at high school. Now he's a senior. But guess who he's still hanging around with? And it's such a tricky thing. Look what we've done to kids these days. Let's say he was friends with, maybe he was a little socially awkward. I don't know, but either way, he's a senior. He's got a lot of friends that are juniors, both boys and girls, male and female. And he now graduates. He's over the age of 18. And maybe he started college, junior college, whatever. Well, where should his mind be? In a lot of different ways. Right? It's like upward and onward. But let's say it's summertime. He's graduated. He's 18. His friends are, and it could even be from church. Doesn't matter. But they're all good. So the kids are going to go to the lake and they're going to have a sleepover. They're going to do, right? Don't do sleepovers anymore, but I can envision these, right? So they're all going to go out and they're going to, let's say, Christian party. I'm trying to get the least offensive, pardon the pun, category scenario that I've kind of had in my groups. So before you know it, you've got this kid that's over the age of 18 and he's hanging around with 16-year-old girls and they start drinking. And before you know it, what do they do that night? Okay. That's what the world, right? And all of a sudden her parents find out. Guess what her parents do? They call the cops. Guess what happens to him? He gets arrested. And guess what category he's in? And why do I call him? That's what they call him in the jail, the prison. The young and the dumb. Now, he may be charged with a misdemeanor, but I've had guys in my group, so that would be a felony. If a misdemeanor, you're getting off. But I had guys, and what's so sad is they don't break sex offender treatment out by offense. It's called risk level. Okay, so you can have guys that would kill if anybody touched their little sister or their mother. But what they did is they were 18 or 19, they had sex with a 16 or 17-year-old. And they're sitting in group with what? So it's really bad sometimes. And this is why in group, I have to make sure that this category, it would be here. Okay, these 4 categories, because this is in prison, but I have all these kind of guys now on parole if they ever get out, right? These guys are certainly getting out. But this first 4 chunk of guys want to kill the rest. So very interesting. So that's why it is really dangerous. If you're a pedophile in prison, you're going to be harmed. But look at all these guys, by the way. They're all sex offenders. So it's really strange. Okay. But sitting in group, you can have these guys because, these guys have to hear how these guys harmed children. And even in group, these guys sitting in group, they're sex offenders, but they still want to kill the pedophiles. There's a huge difference, strangely enough. And don't think I'm defending anybody, right? This is all stuff I do, right? But once you go below barely legal, you're entering into this and you're more diabolical and deviant. Now, look at the moral disposition, young and dumb, selfish and idiotic. These guys are just idiots. Here would be a guy coming into prison maybe for 2 or 4 years. We'll show you some of the statuses that they will serve out. And you notice the difference. So this guy's just an idiot and he's selfish. Remember that's like category 1 we were just talking about. Versus now he's starting to get into deviance and what? He's perverted. Look at this. He's proud. Big difference in terms of character or moral disposition. Once you shift into deviance, now you are a predator. You're in the beginning of predation. Doesn't mean there's no hope for this guy. Just means he's purposely setting out to cause negative impact. That's what gets him off. He's going to move from sexual deviant to what? Now this is going to be, he's actively, right? This means he's deviantly aroused, but this is now, he's actively looking to harm. This guy is watching porn that is harming other people. He's getting off and seeing somebody harm. This is now he's doing it. And how do you find somebody where you're going to be able to cause distress? Gonzo kind of porn. You're going to manipulate them, you're going to con them, and you're going to scheme your victims. And before they know it, what's happening? Okay, this is date rape in here. Okay, then we get the sexual predator. You can see that real difference now. Because he's crossing boundaries. This is the true hunter. That's why he's going to use deceit. He's calculating. You can see the difference. Somebody's conniving versus calculating. This is where the guy is really strategizing. This is low-level stuff. We would call this the JV team. Now you're up to, you're professional grade in here. Okay, and callous. This guy's just scheming. This is very callous. And this is where you're getting big sentences, such as all things being equal. You're into the 10 to 20s to 20 to 40 range in here by this time. But typically, this is the difference is this is still over the age, all things being equal, over the age of, by nature, puberty. Okay, these sex offenders right here, this category, they're not going to harm kids under the age of puberty. Now, you might still say that's horrible. I agree. But let me ask you, in some countries, at what age, now just stay with me for a moment, okay, because this is important. What age do some decent men, yeah, I know I'm sounding like I'm contradicting myself, but I'll show you why I want us to think through this. In some cultures, how young, I'm not talking about forced marriages. Let me ask this. How old was, when you think of Joseph and Mary, Mary being the mother of Jesus, how old was Mary? 13 to 15. Would you consider Joseph a perpetrator? I wouldn't. Okay. It's important to think through this. Why? The difference is this. It never was going to be below puberty, but Joseph cared about Mary and was going to be faithful to her and treated her like a princess and honored her. That's the difference between a perpetrator, an oppressor, versus somebody that isn't. So what I want you to hear through all that is, this sounds strange, I'm just going to use this term, so stay with me. These are the normal, there's nothing normal about this, okay? But what I call, these are the normal sex offenders, meaning adult victims. All of this is heinous, okay? This is heinous. This is below the age of puberty. And they tend to go increments of, this would be age 12, all things being equal, 12 to 10 or 9, give or take. Then it's going to be really elementary school, right? But this is going to be middle school first. Then you're going to have elementary school. Then you're going to have toddlers and babies. You see those groupings, and it matches the degree of moral depravity and the twistedness. There you go, sick and twisted. Coercive, cold-hearted, and forcible. And here we go. What kind of things do you think this kind of person, the pedophilic, sexually violent predator, right? I ran a specialized forensic unit, 65-bed unit, inpatient treatment for sexually violent predators. Had access to all their criminal histories, all their files. So when you get to a pedophile SVP, and this designation is placed on someone by a judge, when you get down to this level, what is this kind of person capable of? We already know what motivates them, and they're a psychopath. What are they capable of? What do you think I read in their criminal histories when I was on the SVP unit, overseeing treatment for a year? I opened their files. What kind of stuff do you think I saw? Things that movies that are made of. Do you think I ever saw guys that harmed kids? Of course. How many kids? Lots. In what ways did they harm them? Everything you read in the paper. Do you think any of them ever harmed them so badly that the children died? That they were raped to death? Yep. Did I have some of those guys in my group? Absolutely. Did I ever have any guys in my group that raped someone to death and then dismembered the little bodies? Yep. Did I have them in my group? Yep. Did I ever have any guys in my group that raped little children to death using objects? Yep. Matter of fact, if you want a description of one such rape, not a guy that I dealt with, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have been featured in a documentary called Shattered. You can go on my website and find it. That was made by a good group out of Minnesota, the Child Protection League, to help incentivize lawmakers to increase the penalties for this kind of stuff, instead of decreasing, especially if a guy went out on parole and he did it again. And so in that documentary, there's a police officer that described why he had to get out of the child protective end of things, having to look at the photographs and the videos that were taken from the perps that filmed these things. And it's horrific. And he said it ruined him. Okay, fortunately, I've never had to see the films. I couldn't do it. Okay, but I have to read about them. So the use of objects. Do you think I ever saw any of these perpetrators that happen to be wolf in sheep's clothing? What does that bring to mind? Yeah, in the ministry. 2 Peter chapter 2 is down here, by the way. This is worse than 2 Peter chapter 2. This is millstone. Actually, Jesus says, you better put a millstone around your neck right here, lest you do what? You slip into this category. This was already going to be execution right in the Old Testament. This is millstone. This is the hottest place in hell. Do you think I ever had or heard of a clergy that was raping kids? How about Jimmy Hinton? He and I first started, well, I put it together, but Church Protect was really a co-partnership Jimmy kind of ended up having other priorities, but Jimmy Hinton's father is doing life, what amounts to natural life, 50 years in Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. He was a pastor by day and a predator by night, not only on his own kids, but kids in the congregation and in the community. I forget how many victims. If you want to see one of his victims, if you go on churchprotect.org, you will see a video, a promo video, and the young girl that talks, where she says, I didn't know there were so many like me. I didn't know there were other victims. That's one of Jimmy Hinton's father's victims. And by the way, Jimmy Hinton's father perped on, you'll see a father say, you know what? I haven't been able to go to church in years. That's the father of some little girls that this pastor perped on. He had rape kits. If you go to jimmyhinton.org, you can hear the story. Okay. Now, did he film? Of course he filmed. Perped all over the place for years and years and years. That's how these guys are so good. Was Jimmy Hinton's father ever perped on? Absolutely not. Were there ever perps that insert objects? 100%. Let's say a guy is getting into the religious realm, and the darker these guys go, they'll harmonize with evil. If a guy's willing to insert the end of a baseball bat, a small baseball bat, or anything inside a child, do you think he's willing to insert other things? How about a cross? Of course. Why a cross? Why not, if you're that deviant? But why would he do that? Because he's going to, do you think he's going to show the child what he's using? Of course he is. Why would he do that? Why would he hold up a cross and show the child what he or she, for a boy anally raped, a girl could be anally raped with a cross? Why would he do that? What's down here? Because they're after what? Harming. Get touched by this. The goal is traumatizing. The goal is destroying. The goal is splitting the personality. The goal is shattering the soul, tarnishing. And they will do whatever they need to do. How about, will they take the child at night and terrorize the child? Will they put masks on? What kind of mask? Hollywood mask? What kind of Freddy Krueger? What kind of mask? Any other kind of mask? Would they might look like demons? Would they ever put a Satan mask on while they're raping the child? Would they fill an area out with a bonfire? Maybe paint a pentagram on the basement floor, even if they're not serious about it. But then maybe if they're doing that, they harmonize with what? Oh, yeah. So you could actually, what have I just described? I'm going to get out of this. And, I didn't intend to really introduce that. Maybe that's a perfect segue. That may be enough. Now that I'm thinking about it, you know what? I'm just thinking about those that are watching. That may be enough right there. So that's how. So I want people to hear that, yes, ritualistic abuse happens. Satanic ritual abuse happens. These aren't, how did Jimmy Hinton's father get away with it for years? He didn't look like a freak job. He didn't look like the guy that, a guy that shooting acid and doing heroin and just, twitching and, the creepy guy down the street that everybody tells him to stay away from. No, this is the guy that, as a matter of fact, if people go on to churchprotect.org, again, that father had, Jimmy Hinton's father had won that father's confidence. As a matter of fact, okay, if you can go to churchprotect.org, you know what? Let's play this. I hadn't anticipated. Could you? Yep, you're on the home page. Scroll down, and hopefully you all now know why I put Church Protect together. Okay, we're going to go right there. I don't know if you have I shared the sound. Can you? I don't know if the sound will share. Let's find out. But what you're going to see, I want you to look for the youngest girl that gets up and talks, and there's a man with long hair with a ponytail.
Let's see if it works. You let me know if you can hear it.
Okay. No, we can't hear it. You know what? I think I have to do it on my end. Let's do it on my end.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so there it is. Okay, but I want you to look for, so this father, you're going to see a guy stand up where he talks about he hasn't been to church. Oh, what had just happened? I'm sorry, you all. the button and I pushed the darn thing. Let me go back. Emma, can you bring that up? Or do I don't know what happened. Everybody bear with us. You know what? I'm going to stop sharing and you take it from here. How's that?
Well, you couldn't hear it on my end, so you have to screen share on your end.
You know what? Okay, so everybody bear with us. I think you take control of it. And now if you go down under screen share and click audio, so I think I gave it back to you now. No, it's still, okay, I take it back. I'm sorry. Everybody, this is live. You and I are doing this. Okay, let me get out of this now. I'm going to get out of that one.
We're experimenting with new stuff.
Everybody, bear with us here. Okay, you can see this is live. So what just happened? Was that on my end? Or can you bring that up again, Emma? Okay, I'll bring it up. How's that?
Perfect.
Everybody bear with us.
Bring it up, but we still won't be able to hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So let me double check to make sure that I did it. So everybody bear with us. You can tell this is unscripted. Okay, Emma, you'll have to tell me if you can hear this.
Okay.
It's imperative that a church leader be discerning between different degrees of sex offenders in order to assess the level of risk they pose to a church. And what Church Protect calls the super predator. That is the serial pedophile who specifically targets churches and is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
The most important thing about Church Protect is the fact that they are willing to identify.
This was the prison chaplain, by the way.
For congregations and for pastors, how to identify the predators that may come into their church.
They're in all walks of life.
That's the father.
They're doctors, they're police, they're attorneys.
By Jimmy Hinton's dad.
The average Joe.
Allowing Church Protect to educate so that you can make an educated decision to at least educate yourself on what are the motives behind predators, what are the tactics that they use.
I just wish all his victims would come forward and tell their story, because there's healing in the story. I still have a lot of issues I have to deal with because I haven't been to church in over 7 years.
People who
this is one of the victims.
Didn't know that they were survivors
of a past.
And then I found out because I confided in them, and I was like, wow, this does happen to a lot of people. How can this just happen to so many people?
One of the biggest things is loneliness. Because we feel alone. I feel alone with 5 children, and I feel, like there's nobody out there that's going through what I'm going through. And I just think it's just getting the word out there, knowing that you're not alone, holding these symposiums.
I remember being 6 years old and saying, I will never tell him I love him because he made me feel so uncomfortable growing up.
The other co-founder of Church Protect, who's a therapist who has worked extensively with survivors of child sexual abuse and worked extensively with child predators in prison, thousands of them.
We started out working with survivors. We ended up in prison. I have about 11 years in prison. Mary Liz about 7. She's been doing therapy for a total of about 30 years. I've been doing therapy for about 25.
You have to use your eyes. You have to watch what they're doing. Behavior is an important key of what to look for.
So how can a pastor reach out? How can a pastor help survivors? They need to educate themselves. They need to, in a very practical way, put together the right type of systematic help so that finally the survivors can disclose, and we can help with that.
We need to create the proper tools to help churches walk through that process of grieving with survivors, of protecting survivors from predators, and of keeping predators at bay.
So that is the little promo. But what you saw there, that man, that father that said he hadn't been to church in 7 years, that wolf in sheep's clothing, that sadistic man, was a pastor for 25 years, all the while perping on his own kids, perping on the community. He was no Christian. He was a fraud, and he was on the far right of the continuum. And more than likely, he worked with other men. So now you have a trafficking situation. He invited other men. That father was convinced. So the pastor offered to babysit to give that dad a weekend away. When that father was supposedly being able to relax because he's a single dad, guess what Jimmy Hinton's father, supposed pastor, was doing with the kids? He took them on hikes, and guess where they went? Guess what they encountered? So yes, evil people can do evil things, including add trappings. They can get into or can add the trappings of darkness, ultimately to keep kids silent. That is SRA. And if it's not out in darkness, you can take kids and very methodically traumatize them and be very sadistic like the Nazis, and that is MK Ultra. So yes, this all really happens. And I've seen files, and I've worked with survivors, and I've worked with the predators. So yes, this is all very real. And that's why survivors need to understand it wasn't them. It wasn't about them. There was nothing they could have done to prevent it, because think about the evil people on the right. Guess what they were going to do? They learned the skills of manipulation, but they were over on the right by that time. So every survivor here needs to understand there was nothing you could have done or not done. Couldn't have done more, couldn't have done less to have changed what happened to you. They intended to do exactly what they intended to do and never intended to do anything other than what they intended to do, because they were that evil. And therefore, every part within you needs to understand those parts that are still reluctant to let the truth come up. Who are you protecting any longer? Are you waiting for a thank you from those perps? Do you think you're ever going to be given accolades? They're long gone, in a way other than to make sure they don't go to prison. You were there to protect the core little person. You can do that now. You don't have to keep others quiet on the inside. The thing the perps never thought is that you'd ever figure out the truth. And the truth is, that's how evil these perpetrators are. And that's why we're showing you the real deal as far as how does somebody get to the point where they can look so normal, so nice, so good, you'd be so diabolically evil. So we'll be covering this chart, and we'll be adding more to it, probably for the next few episodes, so that people can really normalize and come out of the sense of crazy making. Like, okay, wait, how do I reconcile? Because it was all a ruse. They manipulated you.
Excellent, Jon. And that's what's interesting about your perspective is you have worked with both ends. You've worked with the survivors, and you've worked with people who hurt victims that became the survivors that you have talked to, and I think that offers a really, really unique perspective for people to get to see that and to get to learn from you in that way, because not many people, I think, can, say that they've even worked with one of those demographics, much less both. And it's really impressive, your resume and how long you've done both, so I really appreciate you sharing all that. It's so empowering to give people that peace of mind back and to take that shame off, to take the knapsacks off, and to be able to take responsibility for the things that they need to, which at that time normally is healing, and you can't heal when you have all those knapsacks on you. And when you have in that constant state of blame and shame, guilt and holding responsibility that's not yours, then you can't, it prevents you from being able to hold on to the responsibility that you should actually be focusing on, which is, like I said, healing from these people that hurt you. So I really love how you're able to intertwine both of these worlds, the perpetrator world and then sort of the healing world. Like you're really able to integrate both in a beautiful way that's really cohesive, and it shows how these different power dynamics work between control and free will, and how one can manipulate each other, and how you can also take that power back and move back to the end that you were intended to have at birth. So I really appreciate you being able to tie all this into it, along with the spirituality side, and really give people a good understanding of what happened to them, because it is so multidimensional, it's so multi-layered. It's very, very confusing for a lot of people to sift through that. And that's what stands out the most for many, many years for most survivors, are those really, really heavy emotions. It's not the joy and taking back their power and empowerment, and happiness. It's years and years, sometimes decades of just horrible memories and emotions that back it up, and abreactions, and just not really understanding what they actually went through, and, that it wasn't their fault. And being able to give somebody that gift back and say it wasn't, like take your power back and heal, invest your power into healing from what somebody else did to you. That's a really big change for somebody to make in their life and in their healing journey. So I really, really appreciate you breaking this down. And I'm excited too to keep digging into this, because I think it's fascinating to understand that, because we're always influenced by that, even by electronics and politicians. We watch a TV and that power dynamic's happening, and we're watching politicians bicker, and these power dynamics exist all around us, sort of the narcissistic, empathic, or predator victim. It's everywhere, and we have to be aware of that in order to keep our our safety, to be able to protect ourselves from being manipulated by abusers that we might not even be looking at as that. Because like you said, again, great point. We picture predators and pedophiles to look like the homeless guy on the street that, looks like he hasn't showered in 10 years and might be talking to himself. And, very sadly, it couldn't be less true that is what a predator looks like. These are very, very resourceful, many times wealthy, well-known, respected, charming, filled with accolades,
Very normal looking.
Very normal looking.
Extremely normal looking.
Yes.
Matter of fact, the ones that we're focused on really, and the most dangerous ones, are the more psychopathic they become, the more they're moving toward the right end of that continuum, the more normal and adept and socially well-adjusted they become.
Yes.
That's what we really need to understand, what the public needs to understand. The worse they get in terms of psychopathy, the more normal they become looking. And that's why we never suspect them. That's why we vote them into office. That's why we give our kids to them to be the coach of the Olympic female gymnastics team. We trust our doctors. We trust our police officers. We trust those that we think are our kids just being taken to an island, or kids going on a Disney cruise. Certainly, this is the head of Child Protective Services. Certainly, that's a person that would be protective of kids. Meanwhile, would we ever believe they're running a trafficking ring? That's what they count on, us not questioning and not noticing.
Yes. And we're so trained to not do it, because if somebody's a doctor, they have to be a good person. They have to be smart. They have to have money and a good upbringing. What great parents they must have had. Like we're really conditioned to look at people because of their labels, and on the same token, they train us to look at somebody like a homeless person as very different than probably how they are. That person probably is much closer to the survivors that you hear on this show, victimized, probably had a horrible life, and we've been manipulated to make them predators, which some of them may be, but it's just very skewed how we look at things. Like you said, we respect people that we shouldn't so many times.
And Emma, that's why I say, and this is true, ready? If somebody wants to study the effects of significant sexual abuse, sexual trauma on men, it's going to be the same thing for women. But if you really want to do the right research as far as your methodology in prison, so we're going to find the greatest harm, you're not going to study the men on the sex offender unit. If you want to study about the effects and impact and harm, you're going to go to the drug and alcohol unit. And you're going to work with guys that are all tatted up, that have a significant history of any of the drugs that get them down. Right? The heroin, anything that will numb them. Why? Because they're sitting on rage. And they have parts oftentimes. And they're just trying to do what they can do to keep from having a rage blackout. Yeah, unfortunately, if we just do straight up drug and alcohol, it's never going to touch the trauma. So the drug and alcohol unit in prison is where, if you want to do the research on the effects of significant child abuse on a prison population, you go to the drug and alcohol unit.
I believe it.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue this.
Yeah. It's it's an important topic. I think, the more that we learn about this, you realize that this is something that we should all learn. This isn't just reserved for understanding survivors. We don't always realize all the influences in our lives and our relationships, So thank you again for creating that chart that you made. I love that you do that and that you're providing visuals to people. Some of the stuff it's a lot of information. There's a lot of moving parts, sometimes quite literally, like in your systems chart that you made, and being able to actually just see it creates a very meaningful and I think deeper level of understanding of things that are really hard to comprehend. So I think this is really cool. I'm excited to learn more. And I love that you showed that video too. That was a really, really impactful video. So let's go back to Church Protect, since I already have that up, and let's go through all the places that people can find you and connect with you. And if you want to explain more what Church Protect is, go for it, and just share how people can keep up with you, Jon.
Okay. And if somebody's still listening to us, they deserve an award. I just realized how long.
This is great.
Okay. So again, I have 3 different sites. Churchprotect.org primarily has more clinical or my research. Am I officially published? No, in time though. But if you want to go into the Truths tab, that will, I recommend both. But again, the Truths tab has more of the research. And then under the Insights tab, that I had to break it out now, Insights 2024. But under the regular Insights, so that's social media posting. If you want to find out kind of my commentary, what I do on social media, it's primarily Twitter. That's all I can keep up with. Under just the regular Insights, if you want to find out my story about being the first prison psychology staff whistleblower against abuse or regarding abuse of mental health inmates in solitary confinement. That's my story. So I blew the whistle on Pennsylvania Department of Corrections and paid a pretty heavy price. They trumped up charges. Euler forged stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm a lot of benefit working in prison. I'm going to forge what? Oh, you're going to forge treatment plan. Oh, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do extra work. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. So that's why the judge tossed it. So the entire story is there. The pusher of that myth and the really one of the main guys who wanted to see me in prison, he eventually lost his psychology license, James Harrington, and I was a key witness against him. So it's a lot of divine justice there. Okay, so that's churchprotect.org. And then there is SurvivorSupport.net. And this is a resource for survivors. Best way to do it, move from left to right. If you want to visit what I'm doing on my Friday night live podcast, as far as the recordings, that's under the podcast tab. Yeah, you can cut in there. That's right, under Listen Live. So that is the Exceptional Conservative Network. I don't, there's a lot of conservative commentaries. I myself am conservative, but I want you to know. So I don't, it goes 24/7. But if you scroll down, my little picture might be there under the host somewhere in there. So you can see my picture. There I am. You'll see the little
There's
thumb.
Jon.
There I am. Okay, so that's kind of cute. There I am. So Friday nights, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this station. So I'm the only counseling station right there. So that's where you find me. So 8 to 9 p.m. Or you can go back and watch past podcasts under the podcast tab. I'm currently working on a series. Every survivor should listen to it. It's what is forgiveness, what it is versus what it is not. Emphasis on what it is not. There's been false teaching, a lot of it out there. Okay, so we're almost up to episode 30. There will probably be a total of about 50. So it's about 50 hours on the topic of forgiveness. We have to get this right so that survivors can be set free. So that, and then a lot on boundaries if someone scrolls further down. So then there is another site that's, so I don't want to keep people up too late if they're watching this. But it's a good series. I'm trying to take time to go through every aspect of the subject on forgiveness. Right. And then I have a couple, there's about repressed memories, right? There's your answer. If somebody poo-poos repressed memories, go into that. That's a bona fide repressed memory. So all you have to do is find one. We found one. Okay. That's a military veteran. So it's a guy that had repressed memories and through a dream, by the way, that was verified. 2 programs about difficulties during the holidays and then the rest on boundaries. And if you want to see some of the charts that I went through, they are in there. So there we go. The next site would be Unmasking the Trans Movement. All one word scrunched together. That would be .com. And that is an extensive resource of podcasts, 30-minute podcast episodes on clinical matters and also talking as far as personal experience, survivors or parents and others. So it's good, definitive information that will equip you to combat the false narratives that are being pushed for the reason why to trans kids, to transition them. So that's that site. All the videos are up on maybe even a few of the recent ones right there on YouTube, all the same thing, Unmasking the Trans Movement. I am hoping to put up, there is one that I haven't gotten to. You can see I'm 2 weeks behind. So we did one, Pierre Barnes, great guy. He has a site that you can go in if you're a parent and you can check out if any of these, literally, you can find out if any of the deviant Soji, sex ed, perverted books are in your school library. You can look it up, go into your own school library. I think certainly if you're in Canada, Pierre's from Canada. I think he's also done for the US. So that episode is waiting for me to put up, to find the time and get that up. We've had Pierre on before, by the way. And then the other one is my blog, which is SurvivorSupport.us. And then, but then my YouTube channel.
Yeah, you can't forget your own YouTube channel.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's my YouTube channel.
Yeah, we've got tons of videos on here.
And you know what? I just figured out how to do playlists. So I'm very proud of myself. I'm a tech challenged individual. So people can see that as I do these things, I just put them up. So there's this smattering and people would probably try to figure out what I can't make rhyme or reason. So if you go to the playlist, I actually broke them out I separated them out. So Emma, you're in my episodes are on the left there.
Playlist.
Yep. And then, so if you want to see all these, so there's the trans movement, you got sexual psychopaths, boundary. So the 2 on the right are the Journey to Healing programs. So there you go.
That is terrific. And don't forget that you're on Twitter, Jon.
Oh gosh, I'm on Twitter. That's right.
You're on Twitter. We get to see Savage Jon whenever we're on Twitter. And his handle is @ Uhler_Jon. I will have that in the show notes too. But you guys can keep up with Jon day to day on here. He's always posting current news and the trans movement and the church movement and the survivor movement and so much more. You can see all the attacks that happen and all the wars that literally get waged on him. Shows that he's the real deal. Otherwise that wouldn't be happening. But I really love Jon's Twitter because he's constantly updating it with where he's at during the day and week, what's new in the news that day, or even in that moment. He catches wind of a lot of these issues very early on, so you can sort of keep up with it without having to search yourself. And all of his links are also in the bio portion of his Twitter, so you guys can definitely check that out and go follow him. Keep up with him day to day. Jon, you're crushing it on the content and you're doing an awesome job. And I commend you for what you're doing because I know it's not easy. I know you have people that come after you, and I know that you are sort of going against the crowd in a sense, or against the grain in your field. And I think it's awesome with seeing your bravery and your courage to be able to do this. So thank you for all your work that you've done over the past couple decades, and recently compiling it all together to create ways that we can sort of shortcut your own learnings into, podcast episodes like this.
Well, you're more than welcome, and Emma, I commend you. And thank you. Right? This is giving me an opportunity to try to get to be organized, which is a challenge for me, stick to certain topics and whatnot, but it's long overdue. The chart that we're working on now, it's probably long overdue that I put that together. So, and people are seeing this. The only place to get these interviews is on Emma's channel. On mine, I have an abbreviated version that don't have the questions and answers. So if you want to get the entire episode in its entirety, the only place to get it is on the Imagination podcast.
Teamwork makes the dream work. It's an honor having you on, Jon. This is really valuable. Like I said, it's changing people's lives. I'm getting phenomenal feedback. And you guys listening, we do Q&As at the beginning. We try to, as long as the content material isn't going to take super long. We try to squeeze some of those in. That way you guys can get your questions answered. So put them in the comments. We love hearing from you guys. And you guys have came up with some really awesome questions, some really challenging questions, and questions that a lot of people probably have. So know that we are reading the comments. You guys can drop your questions. We have others that we haven't got to, but we are making a list, and we're going to correspond those questions with the episodes that they'll go best with. So please leave your comments. Don't be discouraged if we don't get to them within the next couple of weeks. We will eventually get to them. We really, really appreciate you guys asking them. So thank you guys. And please connect with Jon. I'm going to have all of his links in the show notes. Really, really good to get eyes on people like Jon. He's not a lone wolf. There are others like him, but it's rare. And we need to stand by these warriors that are going against the grain and being the first to sort of step on the field and put their battle suit on and go to war. We hope that Jon encourages other people to suit up and do the same instead of, spectating and watching what's happening, a lot of times at their own will. So Jon, I commend you again and think it's awesome. And you're a great role model and you set a great example in your field. And I'm excited to see where your journey goes and all the awesome podcasts that you're doing. I'm so happy that you're getting recognized more. You deserve it. And if anybody listening has a podcast, invite Jon on it, you guys. But please go connect with him. I'll have all my stuff in the show notes to you guys. We're really grateful for all your support and that you guys stick with us and, see the impact that this podcast has and in these series like what Jon's doing with us. We really, really appreciate you guys supporting and sharing and commenting. So again, leave your questions below, connect with us. We love you guys so much and appreciate you. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
On Prime Crime.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. We need the cops here as soon as possible.
It's the 911 call heard around the world, casting the spotlight on a popular YouTuber.
If you're in a position of power and you turn your power and give it over to the kids, that is control.
And her partner in crime.
Hi, I'm Jody Hildebrand. I am at the second annual Women's Retreat.
I'm as shocked as anybody. Her and Ruby were just the two wrong things to come together.
In a story that has layers.
She can stay right here on the porch so you can see her.
What are you afraid of, sir?
Upon layers.
Jody is very smart in how she approaches her therapeutic modalities. It's like a frog being boiled in water. You start off with the cold water and slowly turn up the temperature.
Hey there, everybody.